Good evening, everybody. I'm back in front of my computer after a very long day. Thank you to those of you who joined my live stream while I was at Mid Sussex District Council earlier today. Today was the first meeting in a very long road ahead of us. It's a very big battle that we're about to face. Mid Sussex District Council, for those of you who are just catching up, met today. A scrutiny committee met to review Scientology's application for a public spaces protection order, which would make it illegal to protest outside St. Hill, Scientology's UK headquarters. And today was the first meeting and the first of many. We have a long road ahead of us. So let's talk about what happened today. This is the agenda. You can see it's a very thick, meaty document of what was discussed today. This is Mid Sussex District Council. This is available online for those of you who want to look at it. I did actually go through a lot of this in a previous stream, so I'm not going to read it out. I'm actually just going to play some clips from the council meeting today and talk about it. I think that's a good way of doing things. So I went down to Haywards Heath, which is about an hour outside of London. The meeting started at 7 p.m. I was there for about 6 o'clock, and I sat in the public gallery. I was not given the opportunity to speak or ask any questions, which we'll come to a bit later as to why that's a little bit worrying based on what we heard in the meeting today. So first of all, let's say hello to some of the people here in the chat. Charlotte Arrow, I hope you can get some rest soon, Alex. Well, me too. However, I'm not going to rest until I am 100% certain the abuse has stopped inside Scientology. And unfortunately, when Scientology are doing everything they possibly can to restrict our freedom of speech and restrict our right to protest and right to free and peaceful assembly, I'm afraid I'm not going to be getting any rest anytime soon. But thank you for your concern. Linda Mikkel is here. Bok Buddy, hi Alex. Mark the Dorset SP, good evening. Karen, hi Karen, how are you doing? Thank you for joining. Good to see so many regulars in the chat. So obviously I live streamed the council meeting on my channel. The audio wasn't very good. It was all through a speaker system. The nearest speaker was miles away. So if you want the good audio, go to the Mid Sussex District Council YouTube channel. I'm going to be playing some clips here. But the meeting started with declarations of interest. So any councillors, whenever they get together on a meeting, they have the agenda and they say, hey, does anyone here have any reason why they shouldn't participate in discussions, or, you know, they have conflicts of interest and so on. And Rex Whitaker, who is a councillor who used to be the mayor of East Grinstead, very honourably stood up and said, I have a declaration of interest. So let's first off watch that portion. This is taken from the Mid Sussex District Council YouTube page. So let's watch that first and foremost.
Members, in respect of any matter on the agenda, does anybody want to? Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chairman. I need to declare a personal interest in agenda item 10. I have attended the St. Hill Charity Gala in the past, particularly in 2018, when the Church of Scientology made a donation directly to a charity that I was supporting in my mayoral year for East Grinstead Town Council. So I propose not to take part in the discussion or any voting thereof. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitaker. Thank you.
Okay, I hope you guys could hear that. Let me know in the chat if you could hear what was just said, because if you can't, or if you couldn't hear it, that makes it a little bit difficult to do the next portion of this video. But essentially, Councillor Whitaker very honourably stood up. He said, I shouldn't be involved in this discussion because I've attended an event at St. Hill. And he mentioned 2018 being one of the big ones that he went to. What he failed to mention was the fact that he not only attended the charity concert, but he currently features in a Scientology propaganda promotional video that is currently available to watch on their website, and they have shared far and wide. So let's have a little look at that, shall we? This is taken from Scientology TV. I'm just going to play a short clip here where you can see That's St Hill. So this here is our favourite Dick Sweatman. He's a councillor at Mid Sussex District Council, although he's not part of the Scrutiny Committee that met today. However, the next clip. Right, so that there is David Miscavige, leader of the Church of Scientology, and standing to his left is Rex Whitaker as the mayor of East Grinstead. And you can see here he's featured, and in another clip later on, he's actually shaking David Miscavige's hand. And this is only a very short clip, but it's one of many clips where councillors are featured in Scientology promotional videos that are currently available on the website. So as much as it is very honourable for Councillor Whitaker to say, I have an interest here because I went to an event, I wish he'd also mentioned that he's currently featured in promotional materials that the church are trying to use to promote or claim legitimacy of some kind. But nonetheless, it's already a promising start. If we compare this to East Grinstead Town Council, for those of you new to my channel, I was going through months of back and forth with East Grinstead Town Council after I found out the mayor and a bunch of other councillors went to Scientology events, most particularly the most recent one in November last year. I complained about the undue influence that Scientology were having on the council, and my complaints panel, I was given a panel of councillors to hear my complaint, and all of them had been to the event and feature in Scientology promotional videos. So I requested a new panel. I said, that's not fair. Give me some councillors who haven't been to Scientology events to hear my complaint about how Scientology are influencing the council. They gave me a new panel, all of whom had also featured in promotional videos. So I had to request a new panel twice. I was finally given a panel of councillors who do not feature in Scientology promotional videos, who have not been to a Scientology event, but I had to ask twice, and I had to go through a rigmarole. I had to have a mental health expert give a statement about how it's not particularly beneficial for my mental health to be sat in a room with a complaint being heard by people who are promoting the people who abused me. The council didn't want to change the panel. I had to go through lots of rigmarole and lots of bureaucracy in order to have a fair panel heard by people who do not feature in Scientology propaganda. So this was in stark contrast to how East Grinstead handled their complaint and this whole issue back in January, February, March, April of this year. So already looking good. The councillors who are involved in Scientology stood up and said, I shouldn't be a part of this. So I actually went, yes, when that happened, because massive respect for Councillor Whitaker for declaring that. And I think it's only right that anybody who is or has been involved in Scientology aren't a part of the decision-making process. So let's move on. This was a meeting with lots of different items on the agenda. The St Hill Protection Order was actually item number 10. So we had to wait 40 minutes before this actual item came up on the agenda. And let's just hear what they had to say. This is 38 minutes into the meeting for those of you following on the Mid Sussex Council YouTube page.
Thank you, Councillor Whitaker. Members have received the officer's report with this agenda and have been circulated additionally with all the correspondence sent to us by Peter Hodkin, the St Hill solicitor. I hope you...
So this is where things start to get concerning. Scientology applied for a public spaces protection order on the 15th of July. This is only now being debated by the Scrutiny Committee today, and since July, there has clearly been a lot of correspondence, as Councillor Hatton here refers to, between Scientology, their lawyer, Peter Hodkin, and the council. So she tells us that there has been a lot of correspondence, and all of that has been shared with all of the councillors. The first time I, as a protester, as the one that organised the protest last year, and clearly the enemy here in Scientology's eyes, was first contacted about this last week, when this meeting was added to the calendar of events after I'd already done a live stream about it and talked to various people about the meeting. I found out it was going to happen. I saw it added to the agenda on the website. And after that had happened, they then contacted me. And they said, hi, there's going to be a public consultation period. And could you please provide information so we can contact those people who may be attending a protest or would like to be involved in the public consultation period? To which I responded, yes, absolutely. Here are some email addresses. Here are the people that I think you should contact. I had a very brief discussion with one of the assistant directors of Mid Sussex District Council on the phone. And I explained very briefly my concerns, and had a very brief chat. But that is the extent of my involvement in this process so far. However, Scientology have been communicating with and engaging with the council for 3 months prior to us even being contacted. And this is what Sue Hatton here is saying, is all of these councillors have been given all of this information from the lawyer and from Scientology, and that's all going to inform their decision today. Well, where's the impartiality? Where is our say in this process so far? And where is our transparency? When are we going to see the documents that they provided? Because it is very clear that Peter Hodkin and the Church of Scientology have made some very serious allegations of harassment, of religious bigotry and hatred and discrimination against me and those who joined me at the protest last year. I haven't seen any of those documents. I've not been asked about any of the allegations, and all of that information is what is being used to make the decision on whether there should be a public spaces protection order, which I think is inherently unfair. But regardless, this meeting today was not about deciding whether to put a PSPO in place. It was to review the report that the Deputy Chief Executive of Mid Sussex District Council had put together based on what Scientology had said. So let's carry on.
You've had the opportunity to read all these papers. Tonight, we're only discussing the process that Mid Sussex will carry out in gathering evidence in a fair and impartial way.
So, problem already, fair and impartial. Already, the process has been impartial, right? If you look at the report, which I've got here, and you can also see online, what the Scrutiny Committee are actually doing today is deciding on whether or not the full council, or the cabinet, should be voting on the PSPO. So the Scrutiny Committee that met today have the ability to implement public spaces protection orders of their own accord. They don't have to do it the way that they're doing it. Scientology could have applied, and the Scrutiny Committee could have met today and voted, and they could have said yes or no to the PSPO. However, because of the importance and the national and international interest in this particular matter, and the rising number of protesters against Scientology in the world, and the number of concerns that have been raised about undue influence and collusion with East Grinstead Town Council. Let's not forget, I worked at the Daily Mail for a very long period of time, who did a double-page expose on how East Grinstead Town Council was being infiltrated by Scientology. The Scrutiny Committee have said, we should think that the wider cabinet of Mid Sussex District Council should in fact vote on this rather than just us as a Scrutiny Committee, which I support, because that means they're doing their due diligence. They are not going to rush into any decisions, and they think that a wider group of people should be consulted rather than just deciding based on whatever Scientology have told them. However, what they're voting on are these 3 points. 1, to note the contents of the report. 2, to note that Cabinet will make a decision following the appropriate process. And 3, to endorse and recommend to Cabinet to consult on making a PSPO. It was within the rights and the remit of the Scrutiny Committee today to say, no, this is all outrageous, human rights, freedom of speech, there shouldn't be a PSPO in place, and we don't need to waste council resources and funding going through this process because it's all based on lies. They could have voted this down today. Yes, they are voting on the process, but notice the wording is this is the process the council will be taking. We are going to be doing this. This is what we are going to do. It's not saying this is what we propose should happen. They've already made the decision of how to proceed with the Public Spaces Protection Order, and they are voting to just ratify that. What should have happened, in my opinion, is there should have been a consultation prior to this meeting where protesters and people like myself, who are former Scientologists who have been abused by this organization, should have been contacted and asked for our response to the allegations that had been made against us. At that point, that information should have been presented to the council alongside Scientology's application for a PSPO, and both documents should have been considered prior to this meeting. This meeting should have been a consideration of both sides, not just Scientology's application. So inherently unfair, in my opinion. But nonetheless, they're here to talk about the process that they propose they take, but it's being framed as though this is the process we're going to take and we just need your approval for it. So I think that wording, and I know it's a tiny kind of minutiae point, but it is really, really important.
This process will benefit both sides and will form the basis for a decision to be made by Cabinet in due course. Thank you. So I go to Judy, please, to introduce this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think the report is self-explanatory. As the Chair has said, this is a report responding to Odkin and Company solicitors who, on behalf of their clients, the Church of Scientology, Religious College East Grinstead, have asked for a Public Spaces Protection Order, a PSPO, to be made to prohibit any demonstrators from conducting their activities on the public highway, St Hill Road, immediately outside the church. The report sets out the process the Council must follow in considering this request. The committee is not being asked to make a decision this evening. As set out in paragraphs 13 to 15, the committee is asked to note the process and that the Cabinet will be asked to make a decision balancing the rights of protesters against those attending the church, and to do this, the Cabinet must be satisfied that it has taken proper and proportionate steps to understand all the issues and options before it makes any decision. The Council has a wide discretion to decide whether to make a PSPO. As summarised in paragraph 10 of the report, in considering whether to grant a PSPO, the Council must consider what is reasonable, justified and proportionate. The Council is required to consult whatever community representatives the Council think appropriate, including the landowner on whose land the PSPO would cover. In writing this report, officers have taken advice from a specialist counsel who has experience of working on and defending protest PSPOs.
Of course, my internet has decided to buffer at the worst possible moment. Let's refresh the page, see if we can carry on.
Remarks from Councillor Marsh.
So,
Here we go.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to speak, Kevin? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought it'd be useful to provide.
So, Kevin Toogood. So, Mr. Toogood is the monitoring officer for Mid Sussex District Council. He is their legal advisor. Kevin Toogood is the person who dealt with my complaint about East Grinstead Mayor Fraser Visser after he requested that I shut up and don't talk about the issues I had with the council on social media, and asked us as survivors and victims to stay quiet and called me a vexatious bully. I made a complaint to the monitoring officer about his conduct, and Kevin Toogood is the person who reviewed that complaint and decided that the rules weren't broken and the mayor was acting according to how he should have, which I still disagree with wholeheartedly. However, Kevin Toogood is not an elected official. He is appointed. So he is the one that reviews the processes, and he tells the council how they should and shouldn't behave in order order to stay within the guidelines and within legislation. Kevin Toogood is actually leaving Mid Sussex District Council soon. He has hired a replacement who will be coming in shortly, not in this meeting, but I'm sure in the next few, in order to advise the council. Now, Mid Sussex District Council have also sought advice from a King's Counsel, a barrister, on this issue, because they note the national and international significance and press attention on this particular issue. So Kevin Toogood here is providing legal advice to the councillors before they respond in today's committee. That's what's going on right now.
The committee with a little bit of legal advice just to sort of contextualize the debate for tonight, really. So you've heard already that committee tonight isn't making the decision as to whether the council should make a PSPO. This is about the process which informs what the cabinet ultimately decides to do. So the exercise of making or
so again, really, really important here. He is also forwarding this line that we're not here to vote on whether to implement a PSPO. We're here to agree on. We're not even agree on the process. We're here to talk about the process. It's like the process that the cabinet will be doing. This is the process that will be happening. They're not framing it to make councillors aware they are voting on whether to do this process or not. Councillors would have been within their right to say, no, we don't need to go through this process because the whole thing is rubbish. Councillors could have voted it down today, but they did not, because it's all being framed in this regard that this is just a process, it's just a formality, the cabinet will do their thing, we just need to talk about the process. No, they are voting on whether or not to engage in this process and thus waste council resources.
Or making a decision about the PSPO is going to involve the council balancing the protected legal rights of two distinct groups, the rights of assembly and expression for the protesters, and the right to freedom of religion for those attending the church, which is a legally recognised religion.
So I actually pulled Kevin Toogood up on that particular statement. Legally recognised religion is straight out of Scientology's OSA handbook. I know this because it is exactly the same wording of the phrasing used with all of my dealings with East Grinstead Town Council. Legally recognised religion is straight out of a report that has landed on Kevin Toogood's desk from Scientology's lawyers. To be clear, the Charity Commission rejected the Church of Scientology's application for tax exemption in 1999 because it could not prove a public benefit. The Charity Commission ruled that the practice of Scientology does not benefit the public. It may not even benefit an individual. It is a selfish endeavour, and the UK government in the 1970s warned about the dangers of Scientology. Justice Leahy in the High Court back in the 1980s also ruled that Scientology is a dangerous, harmful organisation that preys upon the young and the vulnerable. That is what the courts have said about Scientology. What Kevin Toogood here is referring to is the document Scientology have provided that says in 2013, a Supreme Court ruling made us a recognised religion. That is factually incorrect. I know because I was on staff at London Org with the staff members who went to the High Court that then turned into the Supreme Court for this ruling. I was on staff at the time this was going on, right? That ruling in the Supreme Court was about whether a couple, Ali and Louisa, should be allowed to get married at the Church of Scientology in London. The result of that ruling was buildings, property, churches of Scientology were declared places of worship. It did not rule that the practice of Scientology is beneficial to the public or that Scientology is in fact a recognized religious group. It is not recognized in British law. The Charity Commission rejected their application and said, no, you are not a religious group. Their buildings are considered places of worship. The practice of Scientology is considered harmful to the people who do it, according to British law and the High Court ruling and the Supreme Court and so on. But this is why it's really important here, because it shows just how much Scientology have already been playing that game of trying to stake their case and put their case forward and try to infiltrate and influence the decision. Remember, I have not been consulted up to this point, and if I had been, I could have pointed these things out prior to this meeting. When I questioned Kevin Toogood about this after the meeting, I corrected him. He said, well, yeah, the Supreme Court ruled that it was a religion. I said, no. The Supreme Court ruled that the places that are churches of Scientology are places of worship. I corrected him and I told him everything that I just said to you guys here on this stream. And he said, oh, well, it wasn't really relevant for the Scrutiny Committee meeting. And I said, no, it is extremely relevant. And I just want to make sure that that point is clarified going forward. And we had a little discussion. He agreed. And going forward, it will be framed slightly differently. But I wish we'd had the opportunity to have this conversation prior to this committee meeting. And that's why it's important to engage both sides of this debate from the very get-go. We are already 3 months behind. We are trying to play catch up. Scientology have got the head start here. And I'm now trying to explain to them why it's important you engage both sides. But they've already received a lot of information from them, so it's already slightly biased, in my opinion.
The law on PSPOs requires the council to have particular regard to the rights of freedom of assembly and expression. And it's really important to note the scope of the paper and the debate for members this evening. It's entirely normal where there's a locally controversial matter, and here that's apparent from the existence of the protests, that members in this chamber may hold differing views. It's really important, however, to frame the debate not around those views, whether you agree with the protesters, agree with the church, or are neutral.
See, again, this is another reason it's really important to have consulted with us beforehand, because Scientology have made the case that we're protesting Scientology. We are not protesting their religious beliefs. We were actually there to protest the abuse happening inside the organization. We were there to send a message to people currently in Scientology that there is a group of people, there's a community here to support you if you choose to leave. We were chanting the abuse has to stop. We weren't protesting the event or the practice of Scientology. We were protesting the abuse, and we were trying to be there as a support network and as, a positive reinforcement that you're not going to be left on your own, and there are people to help you land on your feet if you choose to leave. The reason for our protest is not going against Scientology's religious beliefs, right? However, that's what Scientology have told the council. And Mr. Toogood here is saying it's not about whether you agree with the protesters or Scientology. I'm sorry, but who wouldn't agree with the idea of not abusing humans and trafficking children? It's not a question of whether you agree with protesters or not. If you don't agree with the protesters, then that means you agree that people should be abused, because we were just protesting the abuse. We weren't protesting the practice of Scientology, people who believe in Xenu or OT3 and aliens and all this sort of stuff. We weren't even touching that. We were there to try and get the message across that there's a support network available. We weren't protesting Scientology. We were protesting the abuse inside the Scientology organization. Again, a very important distinction that should have been made through prior consultation before this committee meeting happened.
But to frame it around making sure that the process that the council adopts is legally robust and gives the cabinet the best available evidence upon which to base its ultimate decision. PSPOs are designed to control activities which have a detrimental effect to the amenity of people within an area. It's not about being for or against a position, but whether the activity in question is, as a matter of fact, occurring to the scale which is being alleged, and whether it's having the detrimental effect which is also alleged. The process which is before members for consideration therefore seeks to evidence each of those matters so that the Cabinet can be confident it's basing its decision on robust and comprehensive evidence. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chairman. I have read and reread this report, and together with the information that has been submitted by the church.
Again, a reference there to information submitted by the church. When is that going to be shared publicly, and when is that going to be shared with the protesters? And how come the church get to submit information prior to this decision, but the protesters do not? That's my question. Inherently unfair.
Of Scientology, and I think the officers presented us an excellent report, and this is just the start of the process, and I endorse and propose that the recommendation be sent to Cabinet Consultant making the PSPO. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else want to raise anything? No? Yes, I'm looking at him, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo the remarks from Councillor Marsh. It's a very difficult process that's at play here, but the officers have done a very good job in developing a process by which Cabinet can come to its decision. It's the very best in what are extremely difficult circumstances.
Thank you. Right. Should we go to the recommendation then, if there are no other comments? Thank you. The committee are asked to note the contents of the report, note that Cabinet will make a decision following appropriate process, endorse and recommend to Cabinet to consult on making a PSPO. And can you vote with your buttons, please? Somebody hasn't voted?
There we go. Okay, so the one person that didn't vote is, of course, Rex Whitaker, who excused himself from the meeting, having declared a personal interest in the matter prior, which massive respect to him. So I want to frame this by very briefly just saying that Mid Sussex District Council have put a lot of effort into producing this report, and they have spent a lot of time making sure that they do this in the correct manner, and I do really respect that. I respect the fact that the council have said we're not going to be pushed into this, we're not going to rush into it, there is a process that we need to follow, and we want to ensure that we do this the right way and we don't end up in some legal situation where it ends up going to the High Court and we have the press breathing down our necks. However, I think it's really important to note that all of this is about a protest this year. It's not about the protest last year. It's about preventing a protest from happening this year. And at no point have the council even asked if there's going to be a protest this year. All of this so far has all been a giant waste of time and resources if there isn't a protest this year. We could turn around and say, you know what, it's not worth the hassle, we're not going to protest this year. Very possible that that could happen. The council needs to engage protesters. They need to engage us as a community, and they needed to have done that earlier. I had a conversation with Mid Sussex District Council last week when I was first involved with this. I had a very brief conversation with the assistant director, and I put her in touch with a number of people who protested last year. One or two of them replied to the email and said, yes, I'm happy to speak with you. I don't believe she has spoken to anybody other than me. I may be wrong. There may be one or two of them who she did reach out to, but this whole thing so far is inherently unbiased and has so far been a giant waste of the council's resource, because they should have started this process by saying, hey, Scientology have said that you're going to protest this year and they're going to try and stop it. Are you going to protest this year? That could have been a good starting point, but instead they've gone ahead and had this whole meeting without engaging any of us so far. So where does that leave us now? That leaves us at the very start of a lengthy battle. The information that's available on the Mid Sussex District Council website, which is the agenda and the report and so on, shows that there is going to be a months-long review process. What they intend to do is observe and witness the protests this year, and they're going to take notes. They're going to see whether we have broken any rules, whether we are harassing anybody, whether we are antisocial in any way. And they are then going to make the decision after a public consultation period whether or not to put in place a public spaces protection order, which would ban the protest next year. A PSPO can last for a minimum of 3 years, but it doesn't expire. There's no limit to how many times it can be renewed or extended. So we are facing here a potentially indefinite ban on protesting outside St. Hill. And the problem is, once this is in place, other councils and local authorities can also look at this decision and use that to inform their own PSPOs, where we could end up in a situation where protesting outside any Scientology property becomes illegal in the UK if this goes through, which is why it's really important we are engaged as a community of protesters and we are asked and consulted on the whole issue from the earliest possible point. So it's really serious. We are at the start of a very long battle, but it's not going to stop us potentially protesting this year because the PSPO won't be in place until January if it does go ahead. But it does mean that they're going to be very closely watching our actions this year, and any sort of harassment or religious discrimination or anything like that will immediately work to our detriment. So if we do end up protesting this year, if anyone does decide to go to the IES event, please make sure that you are not there to protest the belief or the practice of Scientology, because doing so will result in a PSPO that will mean it's illegal to protest outside Scientology property. We need to gather, if we are going to gather this year, to make sure, like last year, we are there to ensure people know that there is a support network available, that we're there to help them should they choose to leave, and that we protest the abuse, not the belief system. I hope that makes sense. All right, let's have a little look at some of these questions and comments. Wise Mama says, Mid Sussex District Council has also been told that a likely lawsuit will ensue if it is not found to be what COS wants. Sorry, they're in a hard place, but they must do the right thing. I absolutely agree. It's really important that the council do the right thing here, and I do think that they are doing the right thing by ensuring the wider cabinet are reviewing this rather than just the scrutiny, committee. In terms of lawsuits, I can guarantee you, regardless of the outcome, there will be a lawsuit. If they don't put a public spaces protection order in place, Scientology will likely sue the council and claim that there's religious discrimination and there should be a PSPO. If they do put a PSPO in place, of course, there will then be a high court ruling. There'll be a high court litigation and so on from us as protesters, because that is a restriction on our freedom of speech. So the council is in a position now where, regardless of what happens, there is potential legal consequences. This will end up in the high court one way or another, which is why I say we are at the start of a very lengthy battle. So it's really important they do it right. And I think already they've made a key mistake by not engaging us from the get-go. Bok Buddy here says reasonable and Scientology do not belong in the same sentence. Well, there we go. D. Thompson here. Will you be able to protest at the event this month, or do they have a ban pending the outcome of this assessment? No, the assessment will take months. The public consultation period and the assessment is going to be ongoing until January. If it does get put in place, the PSPO will affect protesting next year. And this year, there's currently nothing stopping us getting together, but there will be a lot of eyes on us, and there will be a lot of watching of how we behave and engage ourselves. Charlotte Arrow, pardon my ignorance, but is there anyone to appeal to regarding these discrepancies? No, not as of yet. All we can do is wait for the public consultation period and have our say then. So it's just a matter of going through the process. unfortunately. And Hobley here says they can't ban protest. Well, unfortunately, they can. A public spaces protection order is a limited exclusion zone that can be placed outside St. Hill or any other property that makes things illegal that aren't normally illegal. If you look at abortion clinics, for example, there are PSPOs in place outside the abortion clinics around the UK, and the whole idea is to stop people protesting, people going to get abortions who are pro-life rather than pro-choice. So there are cases in which PSPOs can be put in place that ban the freedom of assembly, but doing so is a restriction on the human rights to assembly and freedom of speech. So it's important they get it right. So it is possible for them to put a ban on protesting. Hobley here says you also don't need to pay to close the road. No, absolutely not. When I applied for the road closure last year, the application was free. There was a lot of other costs to do with organising the protest and legal costs and going down to meet the council and police and all this sort of stuff. So there was a large cost attached to organising the protest, and there will again this year. But the actual application to close the road itself was not something that that was paid for. It was something that you could just do online. Mark the Dorset SP, do we ever see the Church of England undergoing the same process for the abuse in its own church? No, they don't. No, exactly. And one thing to consider is the Church of Scientology promote human rights. We love human rights. We have a front group, United for Human Rights, the Citizen Commission on Human Rights. They are trying to make it seem like they care about human rights, but at the same time, they are trying to restrict the human rights of the people who don't agree with them, us as protesters. They are trying to stop us from exercising our human right to assembly, to protest, which is why it's just even more outrageous that the council haven't engaged in any conversation with the protesters as of yet. Danielle Chamberlain in the house, thank you for joining us. Well done for attending. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it, Danielle. Bog Buddy should take pictures of the road in front of St. Hill and the public spaces before the protest to document the illegal obstructions they'll try to put up. Don't you worry, that is something that is already in process. There are 3 ongoing litigation things that are happening, or not litigation, but issues with the council. There is the planning permission that they don't have for the temporary structure that's been up there for 28 days, the big tent that they use to host this event. There's also the Highways Authority, who have given Scientology 28 days notice to remove the hedgerow and the fence that they have illegally constructed on public land opposite the entrance of St. Hill. And there's also the obstruction of the public right of way. Last year, they put these plant pots and a small wall on the pavement, and they parked vans on the verge outside St. Hill to try and stop us protesters from gathering on public land. That is an obstruction of the public right of way, and that is something the council are aware of and are hopefully going to do what they can to stop that happening this year. So there's a lot going on here at the moment, but I just wanted to bring you this update of how today went at Mid Sussex District Council. This is the start of a very long, tedious process that is now in addition to my role as an activist and my role as organizer of a protest. I want to be explicitly clear here. I have no issue with people who are Scientologists. In fact, my mission is to help those people. I'm not here to convince anybody to leave. I'm not here to try and talk anyone into not being a Scientologist. But if you are a Scientologist and you are in the C organization, or you're a staff member and you decide that you want to leave, I want to be one of the people that's there to help you. I'm here to get that message across. There is a community of people to support you should you decide to leave. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing it. I'm here to stop the abuse. I was abused as a teenager while I was working for the Church of Scientology, and I am one of hundreds, if not thousands, of people around the world who have similar and probably worse experiences. There are more people who have been physically assaulted, beaten, forced to have abortions, all this sort of stuff at the hands of David Miscavige and in the executive functions within the Church of Scientology. People had it far worse than I ever did. I don't want anyone to go through what happened to me, let alone the stories of people that have had it far, far worse. That's why we are protesting, because you can believe in what you want, but you can't treat people the way you are treating people. All we want is for the abuse to stop. You can believe in Xenu. You can believe in whatever you want. L. Ron Hubbard, doesn't matter. I don't care, right? But what I do care about is how you treat people. And that's why we're doing this. So thank you so much to everyone who has supported so far. Those of you who donated to help me pay for the travel to get to Haywards Heath today, I really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much. Obviously, this is going to be a very lengthy and a very tedious and arduous battle that we have ahead of us. So if you want to support the cause, please consider donating to the channel through Buy Me a Coffee. There's a link in the description, there's PayPal, all that sort of stuff, because I don't have the finances to take Scientology to the High Court. Unfortunately, I'm just not that rich. I don't have that much money. So if any support that you guys can offer would be greatly appreciated. But for now, it's a bit of a waiting game. I will continue working behind the scenes and engaging with the council and everybody I possibly can. If you want to help this in a non-financial way, and you want to have your say and be a part of the public consultation period, please send me an email. hello@apostatealex.com is my email address. I need to provide a list of protesters and activists who should be consulted by the council. Have asked me to provide a list of people that they can consult who are on our side, the opposite side of what Scientology is suggesting. So if you want to be part of the public consultation period, you want to have your say and talk to the council and have a voice as a protester, no matter where you are on planet Earth, please email me hello@apostatealex.com and let me know you want to be involved, and I will forward your contact details to the council, the person they're dealing with it, and I will say, hey, this is a protester and they want to have a say in the consultation. The consultation won't take place for several months, so please don't expect to reply straight away. But if you want to be involved, that's how you can help. And also don't forget, donations, buy me a coffee. That helps me do what I'm doing here. I'm here fighting on your behalf. I'm doing what I can. And I have one message and one message only, and that is I'm on war footing and I'm certainly not fucking about.